Omega 1 to 1 equals
999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,
Omega 100 to 1 equals Omega 1 million minus 1 equals Omega 10 carat 10 minus 1 equals
99,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999
Omega 10 carat 10 carat 100 to 1 equals. Omega 10 100 10 minus 1 equals. Omega G64 minus 1 equals. Omega tree 3 1 equals. Omega infinity minus 1 equals. U minus 1 equals. U minus 1 equals. Omega x5 minus 1 equals. Omega x10 minus 1 equals. Omega x 100 minus 1 equals. Omega x 10 carat 10 carat 100 to 1 equals. Omega x 10 100 10 minus 1 equals. Omega x G64 minus 1 equals. Omega x TREE3 1 equals.
0.9999999999999 feet OCOVC 0 asterisk 9 asterisk 9 asterisk 9 inches 9 inches 9 inches 9 inches 9 inches 9 plus. YC the barrier 9 quadrillion 999 trillion 9.
Omega x infinity minus 1 equals. Omega x omega minus 1 equals. Omega x omega minus 1 equals. Omega x x5 to 1 equals. Omega x x10 minus 1 equals. omega XX 100 to 1 equals. Omega XX 10 carat 100 to 1 equals. Omega XX 10 110 minus 1 equals. Omega XX G64 minus 1 equals. Omega XX TREE3 1 equals. Omega XX infinity minus 1 equals. Omega XX omega minus 1 equals. Omega XX omega XX omega minus 1 equals. Omega XXX G64 minus 1 equals. Omega XXX TREE3 1 equals. Omega XXX infinity minus 1 equals. Omega XXX omega minus 1 equals. Omega XXXX G64 minus 1 equals. Omega XXXX TREE3 1 equals. Omega XXXX infinity minus 1 equals. Omega XXXX omega minus 1 equals. Omega XXXXX omega minus 1 equals. Omega XXXXXXXXX omega minus 1 equals. 0.9. Omega XX omega X10 minus 1 equals. Omega XX omega X100 minus 1 equals. Omega XX omega X omega minus 1 equals.
GUI.
Omega XX omega XXXX omega minus 1 equals. Omega XX omega XX omega X10 minus 1 equals. Omega XX omega XX omega X100 minus 1 equals. Omega XX omega XX omega X omega minus 1 equals.
GUI.
omega XX omega XX omega XX omega minus 1 equals omega XX omega XX omega XX omega x10 minus 1 equals omega XX omega XX omega XX omega XX omega minus 1 equals omega XX omega XX omega XX omega XX omega XX omega minus 1 equals omega XX omega XX omega XX omega XX omega XX omega XX omega minus 1 equals omega XX omega x10 minus 1 equals omega XX omega x100 minus 1 equals omega XX omega x omega minus 1 equals omega XX omega XX omega x10 minus 1 equals omega XX omega XX omega XX omega x10 minus 1 equals omega XX omega XX omega x10 minus 1 equals omega XX omega XX omega XX omega x10 minus 1 equals omega XX omega XX omega XX omega XX omega x10 minus 1 equals omega XX omega x10 minus 1 equals
𝐶𝐂
omega XX omega XX omega x10 minus 1 equals omega XX omega XX omega XX omega x10 minus 1 equals per ohm XX omega x10 minus 1 equals omega XX omega x10 minus 1 equals omega XX omega x omega XX omega minus 1 equals omega XX omega x10 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 minus 1 equals Dot. Omega XX omega x 100 minus 1 equals. Dot. Omega XX omega x 10 caret 100 to 1 equals. Omega XX omega xg 64 minus 1 equals. Dot. Omega XX omega x infinity minus 1 equals. Dot. Omega XX omega x omega minus 1 equals. Opening parenthesis dot. Omega XX omega XX omega x 10 minus 1 equals. Opening curly bracket dot. Omega XX omega XX omega x 10 minus 1 equals. Opening square bracket dot. Omega XX omega XX omega x 10 minus 1 equals. Slash dot. Omega XX omega XX omega x 10 minus 1 equals. Pipe dot. Omega XX omega XX omega x 10 minus 1 equals. Pipe dot. Omega XX omega x. Omega XX omega minus 1 equals. Opening parenthesis pipe dot. Omega XX omega x 10 minus 1 equals. Opening curly bracket pipe dot. Omega XX omega x 10 minus 1 equals. Opening square bracket pipe dot. Omega XX omega x 10 minus 1 equals. Slash pipe dot. Omega XX omega x 10 minus 1 equals. Pipe dot. Omega XX omega x 10 minus 1 equals. Dot dot. Omega XX omega x 10 minus 1 equals. Absolute endless minus 1 equals. Absolute all f minus 1 equals. Absolute omega minus 1 equals. Absolute epsilon minus 1 equals. Absolute zeta minus 1 equals. Absolute eta minus 1 equals. Absolute gamma minus 1 equals. 0.99999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999. Absolute epsilon minus 1 equals. LF unknown minus 1 equals. Omega A minus 1 equals. Omega B minus 1 equals. Omega Z minus 1 equals. One ohm minus 1 equals. One U minus 1 equals. One ohm by omega minus 1 equals. One ohm XX omega minus 1 equals. One ohm A minus 1 equals. Two ohms minus 1 equals. Three ohms minus 1 equals. Five ohms minus 1 equals. Ten ohms minus 1 equals. One hundred ohms minus 1 equals. 10 ℏ 100 ohms minus 1 equals. 10 ohms minus 1 equals. G64 ohms minus 1 equals. Tree 3 omega minus 1 equals. Infinity omega minus 1 equals. Ohm per ohm minus 1 equals. Ohm per ohm minus 1 equals. per ohm minus 1 equals. Ohm per ohm per ohm per ohm minus 1 equals. Ohm per ohm per ohm per ohm per ohm per ohm minus 1 equals. Ohm per ohm by 10 minus 1 equals.
999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,9
Opus minus 1 equals. Op 10 minus 1 equals. Opus 10 carat 100 to 1 equals. Op G64 minus 1 equals.
Point 999999999 𝐶OCOVC 0 asterisk 9 asterisk 9 asterisk 9 inches 9 inches 9 inches 9 inches 9 inches 9 plus. YC the barrier 9 quadrillion 999
1 opus minus 1 equals. Absolute never minus 1 equals. Absolute use minus 1 equals. Absolute life minus 1 equals. Absolute sweet minus 1 equals. Absolute tile minus 1 equals. Absolute melon minus 1 equals.
9999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999
Absolute profound minus 1 equals. Absolute dog minus 1 equals. Absolute cow minus 1 equals. Absolute fang minus 1 equals. Absolute slice minus 1 equals. Absolute half tree trunk minus 1 equals. Absolute double X minus 1 equals. Absolute father minus 1 equals. Absolute claw minus 1 equals. Absolute delta minus 1 equals. Absolute inch minus 1 equals. Absolute child minus 1 equals. Absolute card minus 1 equals. Absolute foot minus 1 equals. Absolute city minus 1 equals. Absolute even minus 1 equals. Absolute left to right minus 1 equals. Absolute gamma function minus 1 equals. Absolutely eternal minus 1 equals.
𝐶𝐑.
One repeat button minus 1 equals. Ten repeat button minus 1 equals. One 100 repeat button minus 1 equals. 10 100 repeat button minus 1 equals. Ten 110 repeat button minus 1 equals. 𝐍𝐔64 repeat button minus 1 equals. Tree 3 repeat button minus 1 equals. Infinity repeat button minus 1 equals. Omega repeat button minus 1 equals. Theta repeat button minus 1 equals. Repeat button minus 1 equals. Repeat button minus 1 equals. Repeat button, repeat button, repeat button, repeat button, repeat button, -1 equals. Repeat button x10 -1 equals. Repeat button x omega -1 equals. Repeat button x omega x10 -1 equals. Repeat button x omega 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 -1 equals.
999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999
Button x omega -1 equals. Omega repeat button -1 equals. Theta repeat button -1 equals. Repeat button pi -1 equals. -1 equals. Omega -1 equals. Omega -1 equals. Pi -1 equals. -1 equals. Theta x10 -1 equals. Theta x 100 -1 equals. Sigma -1 equals. -1 equals. -1 equals. D -1 equals. -1 equals. D -1 equals. 𝐂𝐿TRAFINITY minus 1 equals 1 to 1 equals U minus 1 equals 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 minus 1 equals
999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,999,9
Taurus minus 1 equals. Gemini minus 1 equals. Cancer minus 1 equals. Leo minus 1 equals. Virgo minus 1 equals. Libra minus 1 equals. Scorpio minus 1 equals. Sagittarius minus 1 equals. Capricorn minus 1 equals. Aquarius minus 1 equals. Pisces minus 1 equals. Infinity minus 1 equals. Infinity Pisces minus 1 equals. INSTAFINITY minus 1 equals. CORRUPTFINITY minus 1 equals.
0.99999999999 Vito COEC 0 asterisk 9 asterisk 9 asterisk 9 inches 9 inches 9 inches 9 inches 9 inches 9 plus.
SUPIFINITY minus 1 equals. MEGIFINITY minus 1 equals. 𝐍𝐔𝐌𝐹𝐼NITY minus 1 equals ULTRIFINITY minus 1 equals TRUIFINITY minus 1 equals TERIFINITY minus 1 equals TERMIFINITY minus 1 equals full TERMIFINITY minus 1 equals UNIFINITY minus 1 equals N minus 1 equals T minus 1 equals 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 E minus 1 equals